So, just how much does it cost to study in Canada? I get this question a lot, especially from interested applicants wanting to study here. And I actually made a video about it a couple months ago, detailing just how much I spent to come here as an international student found here. But I realized that those costs were back in 2017, and they're basically outdated. I still feel that I could explain the cost much better, which is why I'll be sharing the new and improved and updated cost to study in Canada in this video. So for those of you watching, if you simply just want to know how much you need to prepare or set aside before creating a study permit application, then keep on watching because this video is for you. The first thing that you need to know before starting a study permit application is that it'll be expensive. Yes, it's going to be costly to study in Canada. You're going to spend a lot, and you're probably gonna spend a lot more when you arrive. I'm giving it to you guys straight because I don't want to sugarcoat things. But I'm also not trying to discourage you guys because it is just a matter of fact. Whether it's Canada, whether it's UK, whether it's Australia, as an international student, you're going to pay a lot more for education. And I need you to be fully aware of that in order to proceed. So let's talk about tuition fees. So just how much are the tuition fees here in Canada? Honestly, it's really hard to give you guys an exact number. If I were to just Google it, according to StatCan or Statistics Canada, the average tuition fee in Canada for 2019 to 2020 is close to 18,000 Canadian dollars for international graduate programs, whereas undergraduate programs will cost about 30,000 Canadian dollars per year. But guys, that is the general average cost of tuition for the whole of Canada. Of course, in order to get an accurate number of just how much you will spend for your education, your tuition fee will depend on the province you go to, the school you choose, and the program you take. Which is why it is so hard to give you guys an accurate number whenever I'm asked this question because, like, where are you gonna go? Which province are you gonna go to? What program are you gonna take? You gotta answer these questions, man. Now, I actually went above and beyond for you guys because that's how much I love you. So I did do a little bit of research and gathered the general tuition costs in several local schools here in Metro Vancouver. I limited the scope to the schools here as that's where I'm currently based. Good news, the schools that I've actually listed are approved by IRCC and they also offer postgraduate work permit. So if you are looking for a school in this area, you can have these as part of your options. Tuition cost is calculated per credit. Each course is worth 3 credits. Each term has 4 courses or 12 credits, and typically there are about 3 terms per year. Now, here's a table. In this table, I've only listed the name of the school, the cost per term, and the average cost per year. As you probably noticed, there's no specific program for the cost. The numbers you see are basically calculated by average cost per credit, and I got that by looking at each school and their tuition fee list and kind of eyeballing the average cost. I try to be as accurate as I can given the limited time that I have, and the numbers are basically just to give you guys an idea on what to expect for tuition costs. Next thing you've probably noticed is that I've arranged the table in increasing order. So according to that list, Alexander College and LaSalle College are the cheapest on the list at $19,800 per year, whereas its counterpart UBC or University of British Columbia is outrageously expensive at almost $50,000 per year.
Bruh.
It is deemed as one of the best schools not only in British Columbia but in Canada. And to be honest, the education you will receive there is recognized worldwide. It is an awesome school, which is why you're expected to pay an awesome price. Anyway, moving on. Besides UBC and SFU, all the other schools listed tend to have smaller campuses, less students, less programs offered, and basically everything less. But guys, take note, less does not compromise quality because all of the schools that I've mentioned there are really good in their own aspects. Now, here are my takeaway points from what we've just discussed. The main takeaway for the tuition cost is having enough will not be enough. For example, if you intend to study a 2-year program, but you only have enough to cover 1 year, it's best to wait until you have enough to cover about 75% of your total tuition cost before applying. The reason I say this is because a lot of people assume that they are able to work in Canada in order to cover for their education, which is kind of possible, but personally, I find it rather very challenging, especially if you're to do this on your own. If you are working and studying full-time, you may compromise your actual studies, fail the course, not meet your study permit conditions anymore, and it might even cost you a lot more in terms of time and money. In short, when you come to study in Canada, just focus on that. And lastly, or rather ideally, the more money you have for your tuition fees, the more comfortable or less stressed you'll be. Now that we've covered the big chunk, let's now move on to the smaller guys. Let's start with the study permit application fees. From the IRCC website, the cost for a study permit application is at 150 Canadian dollars per person. Apart from that though, there are other fees that you may need to pay if requested, such as your biometrics fee. And that costs 85 Canadian dollars per person, or $170 for 2 people or more. See, we're done. Wasn't that bad, right? Next up, let's talk about IELTS. A lot of people have been asking me this too, like, Rach, do I need an IELTS exam, or do I need to take an IELTS exam in order to apply for a study permit? And the answer to that is no. IELTS is not required for the regular study permit application, as the application only requires you to submit your official letter of acceptance from a designated learning institution. The catch is, in order to get that LOA or letter of acceptance, some schools may require you to take an IELTS or an English proficiency exam for program entry, which is why I've included the IELTS exam as part of the total cost for studying here in Canada. As of recent, the cost of an IELTS exam in Canada is at 319 Canadian dollars. Next stop, after submitting a study permit application, you may receive a notification from IRCC to submit a medical exam. The IRCC website did list down designated hospitals or clinics for you to take your medical exam, so make sure to check that out before booking an appointment. Generally, the cost for a medical exam is around $300. By the way guys, if you're getting valuable information, do hit the like and subscribe button, because I do appreciate doing this for you guys, as I do want you to make informed decisions in your journey to come to Canada. Another medical related cost is your medical insurance. Again, the cost of your medical insurance depends on your provider. For example, when I studied at PCIT, they already had a private insurance named GuardMe. I had to pay 180 Canadian dollars back in 2017 to be covered for 3 months. After 3 months, I switched over to the Medical Services Plan, or MSP, of British Columbia, which is basically a mandatory government medical coverage plan. For that plan, I had to pay 75 Canadian dollars each month as an international student. Now, there are also other small fees to be aware of in preparation to study in Canada. The price for this, however, varies from country to country. As such, the amount that I will be listing are the costs that I paid from my home country, which is the Philippines. These documents may also be required from your home country, so keep on watching, but I guess the only difference will be the price. First up, police certificate. I only had to pay 5 Canadian dollars for it when I applied for it back in the Philippines in 2017. Another thing is airfare, or your plane ticket. For a one-way trip from Manila to Vancouver, the economy class ticket that I paid for cost me 836 Canadian dollars. It's way cheaper now because of COVID, so I wouldn't really rely on that price based on what's happening right now. In short, just expect more, especially when the travel ban is lifted and everything kind of simmers back to normalcy. Lastly, let's talk about passport renewal. Ideally, you want your passport expiry date to be longer than your program completion date. Based on my experience, my passport was expiring soon, which is why I needed to renew it before submitting a study permit application. I paid approximately 34 Canadian dollars in 2017 to renew my passport until 2022, which was definitely more than enough time for me to complete my program here in Canada. Now, we are finally at the last point of this video, which is accommodation costs. Again, your expenses will vary significantly depending on the city in which you choose to live in. Take note, the amount that I'll be sharing with you is based on where I live, and I live in Vancouver, which is one of the top 2 most expensive cities in all of Canada. Given that, rent is going to be your main concern to live here, as it can cost up to 90% of your total monthly living expenses. However, if you have the same situation as me, you can totally eliminate this if you have kind relatives with a spare room. Hi tita, thank you. But guys, I'm not really gonna give you guys a detailed cost of rent here in Vancouver, as I actually made a video about this already found here. So check that out in your free time. There's also this very helpful website that I found that basically summarizes the rental costs in cities like Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. The website is called live.rent, and I'll also link it below for your information. Here's the last rental report from their website in Vancouver. Well, here's the latest rental report for Toronto. And I guess to give you guys a range, expect to pay around $700 to $2,000 for a 1-bedroom here in Vancouver. And this range includes shared accommodations, basement suites, and apartments. Let's see just how much the total comes up to for your first year of living in Canada, or rather here in Vancouver, since most of the prices I shared are from Vancouver. I will be showing you 3 amounts. First is the amount required by IRCC, second is based on my experience, and third is based on what we've discussed in this video. According to their website, IRCC expects you to have a minimum of $10,000 per year of living expenses. And take note, this amount does not include tuition, so you still have to add that with the $10,000. Per month, that works out to be 833 Canadian dollars worth of expenses, excluding tuition costs. Next is Rachel's amount. So based on my experience, I spent a total of 17,195 Canadian dollars to come to Canada. For my expenses, I did not include rent since I lived with relatives in Canada, so accommodation was basically free. Per month, I spent about 1,432 Canadian dollars worth of expenses living here in Vancouver. Now lastly, let's move on to what we've discussed in this video. So if you're basing the prices from what we've discussed, you will spend a total amount of $47,634 to come to Vancouver. Per month, that works out to be 3,969 Canadian dollars worth of expenses. As you notice, the amount varies significantly depending on the circumstances. But if I were you, among the 3 amounts that I've shown you, I'd go by the high amount just to be safe. First, IRCC's table is very generic. It applies to little towns or cheaper provinces in Canada. But honestly, most immigrants tend to move to big cities such as Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, and the like. And with these cities, they tend to have a higher cost of living. Given that, I wouldn't really rely on IRCC's table. Secondly, for my experiences, I wouldn't really rely on that because I don't see it as somewhat realistic or feasible to most of you guys. First, the tuition fees have increased since 2017. And secondly, I have relatives here in Canada, which was my advantage that some of you may not have. Which leaves us with the last amount, which I think is closer to reality. Of course, you can get away with much less, but you'll definitely compromise comfort, convenience, and for some, sanity. Anyway, that was a very long video. It's longer than I normally do, but I do hope that you found valuable information that can help you in your journey to come to Canada. Start saving up as soon as possible to be closer to your goal of studying in Canada. After all, I am rooting for you, and the reason why I made this video is because I want you to succeed and make sure that you don't have a hard time when you get here. Thank you so much for watching, and of course, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!